So anyway, the text is Numbers 13 and 14. And this is about the 12 spies that Moses sent to Canaan. I think most of us have heard this story before. And I have the text there, and you can follow it. I mean, you can follow it in your own Bibles, or you can follow it there. The translation that we're using today is ESV. And it starts when the people have come through the wilderness. Remember, they've escaped from Egypt and they walked, and they're now kind of they're actually quite close to Gaza and this area that we are now praying for, where the problems are happening in Israel. They are, this is a map and kind of shows what they are how the Israelites went, but kind of where you see the number 12. Do you see number 12? That's basically where they are at this point. Can you see over me? So there, you see, if you look up on the coast, you see Gaza, that was already there, and it's still there. But anyway, they are on this Kadesh Barnea area right now. And they have this goal, the land. They've left Egypt, and now they are supposed to enter the land and take possession of the land that God had promised them. And kind of the theme of Numbers, there are like 3 themes in Numbers. There's the land, the descendants, and the covenant. And this text deals with all 3. But I also see 2 other themes in this text. And they are obedience versus disobedience, and faith versus lack of faith. So anyway, they are in this wilderness, Paran wilderness in Kadesh, on the south side of what is Israel even now. And if you follow right from the beginning, you see Lord speaking to Moses, and he's telling him, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, everyone a chief among them, so leader. And so Moses sends these men, and as you continue, the men are named by name, and by their father's name, and by their tribe, and there's the list. And you see the sons of Jacob named from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua is sent. From tribe of Simeon, Shaphat is sent. From tribe of Judah, Caleb is sent. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal is sent. From tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea. Ephraim was Joseph's son. So when, I think Dave mentioned this last time, when Levites were set apart, they are not counted separately in the 12 tribes. So Joseph's 2 sons form a tribe each. And one is Manasseh, and one is Ephraim. So Hoshea. And Hoshea is actually, his name is changed at this point. From this point on, he is known as Joshua. Then from tribe of Benjamin, remember, Benjamin was Joseph's full brother, the youngest of Jacob's son, Palti. And then from the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel. They're all mentioned. From Manasseh, so this is actually said in different ways in different translations, but this is Manasseh, this is the older son of Joseph. Gadi is sent. From Dan, Amiel. From Asher, Sethur. From Naphtali, Nabi is sent. From Gad, Geuel. And these are the names. And this is where Moses changes Hoshea's name to Joshua. So I find it interesting. They are named, and they are leaders of the tribes, and they are sent. Important men, able men, smart men, and they are sent to spy. And as you go on through the text, Moses gives them instructions. They are to see how the land is, how are the people in it, how is the land, is it fertile, what is growing in there, bring back some fruit. How are the cities, are they fortified, are they not fortified? Are they strong, basically? What kind of cities are they? Are they walled up, or are they just camps? They don't know. The whole nation has been gone for hundreds of years by this time, or generations. And so they go. And they find out how it is. And they come back. And we can go through the text. They bring things. They find that the fruit is very plentiful. And this is I think we all learned this in Sunday school. Those of us who went to Sunday school, the men find such a big bowl of grapes that they have to carry it. Two men have to carry it on a piece of wood, between them. It's so heavy. That's a lot of grapes in one bowl. And they bring back pomegranates, and they bring back figs, and they come back. And they show them the fruit, show the people the fruit of the land. And they tell about the land. They say it's a great land, flows with milk and honey. And look, this is the fruit. So the land is great. The cities are great. They are walled up. They're big. And also the people are big and tall and strong. And they explain about the different nations there, about the Amalekites, about the Hittites, Jebusites, Amorites, Canaanites. These are all the people they would have to conquer. And the people are, making noise. And Caleb, from the tribe of Judah, quiets the people down and say, let's go. Look how great it is. Let's go. We're well able to overcome it, because he knows this is God's promise for them. God has promised this land. So let's go. Let's take over. And we continue the text. And how are the other guys responding? They say, no, we can't go. They are big and they're huge, and we even saw people who look like giants. And they are saying, we're just like grasshoppers compared to them. They are scared. And they're looking at what it looks like to them if they were going against these people in their own power. So basically, this Nephilim, this has to do with, in the text there we saw the Nephilim, sons of Anak. This talks about giants, them being giants. This is mentioned elsewhere in the Bible. And what happens? All the congregation, they start crying. They are crying through the night. They're they're doing the same thing that they did when they had come next to Nile, when they had to cross the river. They're like, okay, Why did you bring us here to die? This is their reaction. If we go there, we're going to be killed, and our children and our wives are going to be taken, and we're going to suffer. And why can't we just go back to Egypt? So they're crying this all night. And Joshua and Caleb, they tear their clothes. They're so upset. And they say, this was exceedingly good land. And if the Lord is on our side, He will give it to us. He will give us this good land. God had promised this land. They have the promise. They have been traveling, eating manna, with God leading them in the pillar of light, in pillar of smoke, to come to the land. And they are at the land now, and they just have to go and receive it. They have to go and take possession of it. It says, do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Basically the same as we say nowadays. It's just a piece of cake. God is going to deliver them in our hands. And how do the people react? They want to stone Joshua and Caleb. No, let's just go back to Egypt and kill you guys. But the Lord puts a stop on it. It says the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the people of Israel. They are right at the tent of meeting. And then the Lord says, the Lord gets mad. God gets angry. How long will these people despise me? And how long will they not believe in me, in spite of all the signs that I have done among them? I will strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make you, he's talking to Moses, I will make you a nation greater and mightier than they. But Moses starts pleading with God. And Moses is very human. He says, but the Egyptians will hear of it. We left, with all these great miracles that he had done, that God had given him to do in Egypt. And Egyptians will hear it that you brought these people in your might from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land. They have heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of these people. For you, O Lord, are seen face to face, and your cloud stands over them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and in a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you kill these people as one man, then the nations who have heard your name, your fame will say, it is because the Lord was not able to bring these people into the land that he swore to give to them, that he has killed them in the wilderness. And now please let the power of the Lord be great, as you have promised, saying, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation. Please pardon the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of your steadfast love, just as you have forgiven this people from Egypt until now. And then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word. And then he tells what will happen. None of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times and have not obeyed my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers, and none of those who despised me shall see it. But my servant Caleb and Joshua. So the Lord tells them that for the next 40 years, The spies had been in Canaan spying for 40 days. 1 year for every day that they had been spying. God will keep these people in the wilderness, wandering. It's not that large of a wilderness, really. They will know every rock and cranny in there. They will be wandering in the wilderness for 40 years until that whole generation, everybody that's 20 years and over on this day, everyone will be dead except for Joshua and Caleb. And so these young people that these men had been so worried about, they will see the promised land. They will enter the promised land and they will take possession of it. And what does God do to the 10 men who had gone, the 10 great leaders of their people, of their tribes, who had gone and who did not respect the Lord? He strikes them down with plague. They die by plague before the Lord. You've heard of plague. It's a horrible disease. You've heard of the Black Death in Europe later on. It's a horrible disease. Very painful, very quick, basically rots you inside out, outside in, everything. So they die. These are people who don't have the Holy Spirit like we do. They just have the promise that they've been given, that God swore an oath to your forefathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, that he will give them this land. He made a covenant with these men, with their descendants, and that's all they have. And God here is showing us in this text that He is holy God. Oftentimes we forget it nowadays because we have the salvation and we know that everything has been forgiven, and we forget what we have been forgiven, what we have been saved from the wrath of God, that you can see how it works. This is holy God that we serve, something very different from us. Perfection. And I think one of the problems that the Israelites have here is that they don't understand who God is. They have seen these miracles that have happened. I guess maybe some of them think they're tricks, magic. They don't understand that they're just small demonstrations of the holy God, the omniscient, the all-knowing, the present everywhere, with power to destroy and to create from nothing, God. And still something happens. At the end of this, there's still a group that says, "Oh, so we're not going back to Egypt. We're going there, and God has given us the land." I don't really believe in this wandering 40 years. So a group of them decides, "Okay, well, we'll go to Canaan anyway." And what happens to them? At the end of chapter 14, God shows them that He's not with them. And the Canaanites, they drive them out. Here it is. So the group that just goes. And Amalekites and Canaanites who lived in that hill country, they come all the way to hill country, and they come down and defeat them and pursue them even to Hormah. And this can also be seen in the map. Do you want to put the map up? The hill country is here where you see Hebron. Do you see Hebron? So they're coming all the way there, and they are defeated and then driven. That city doesn't show in this map, but kind of halfway to where the camp is there at the number 12. So they are driven back, and they run back, and they will go and wander for 40 years. And I think every single one of those who tried that time, they will die in the wilderness. So I was thinking as I was reading this, what is really their problem? Like I was saying, God had decreed that you are my people, and I have made a covenant with you, with your forefathers. I will be with you, and I will give you this land. And they have been traveling to this land, and they do not understand God. And they don't understand that they need to receive this gift. I was thinking, last few weeks I've been in birthday parties, kids' birthday parties, and I was thinking, when you give a child a gift on a birthday party, he runs to it, and he opens it. And that's what God is expecting us to do when he gives us a gift. Open it, take it, possess it, it's yours now. But what are they doing? This is the land I'm giving you, but they're not going, no, let's go back. And I was thinking this is it's the same thing with salvation. It's given to us free, it's right there, and we need to take and possess it. And how many we know who don't possess it, who don't want it, who don't know what to do with it. And it's the same with the gifts that God has given us, our abilities. Those of you who are playing music, you have this ability that God gave you. You have possessed it. You are taking it. Are there any more here who have that gift but are not taking it, saying, oh, thanks for this gift, and let me just go ahead and start doing it? Or some other gift, teaching. I cook because that's the one I have. So just take those gifts and your spiritual gifts. In the New Testament, you can read about your spiritual gifts. And God says He's given us each a spiritual gift. Possess it. Ask, show me and let me use it for the good of everybody. And I was thinking this is really, as they don't understand what God is, and they don't understand how to receive these gifts. How do you receive gifts? You receive them by faith. Especially the gift of salvation, the gifts of the Spirit, our abilities. You have to believe in it. You have to believe it is here. In Hebrews 11, I love Hebrews 11. I love the Hebrews 11:1. I think this is one of the verses that, I don't know, maybe you, but I memorized it a long time ago. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. In Finnish translation, it says that it is basically molding yourself into what you don't see, what is promised to you. You're molding yourself to it. And I love that, because I think God's promises, we're to mold ourselves to them. He told us that we are now his holy people. We're to mold ourselves to that, according to him, according to the knowledge of God. And it's not something we see. When we look around, what do we see? We see anger, we see strife, we see fighting, we see cheating, we see lying, we see all kinds of bad things. Sometimes we see love, sometimes we see care. We see the glimpses of God. And that's what we are supposed to mold ourselves to. We're to find out who God is. So what do we do when we experience lack of faith, when we can't believe? We remember what God has done for us. This was what Becca was talking about. And God also in this text talks about it. How long will these people forget what I have done for them? We're supposed to remember what he has done for us. It was interesting in the first text that you read on the call to worship, there was a word that was different in the translation you read from this translation. The Lord is my strength and my song. But the translation you read, Becca, what did it say? He's my strength and my defense. And that struck me just today here. Because oftentimes in different translations, there are Hebrew words that have so many meanings that the translators have to try and choose what is the best one here. But song can be defense, can't it? When you feel bad and you sing a song that tells you the opposite, it's like a defense against that sadness and depression and all of that. When you sing a song about God and what he has done, you become fortified in your own spirit. These are just practical things you can do. Things that we all need because we're just weak human beings. You count your blessings. You give witness. Becca called us to give witness next time for what God does with us, what he teaches us, and give thanks. It's very, very powerful to thank God when you feel bad. It's not a gimmick, it's not a trick, but to remember the good things. It's the same thing as those of you who are married. You sometimes get upset with the spouse. When you start thinking, what was this spouse? What have they done for me? What do I feel for them? How did I feel when I met them, when I fell in love with them, when they were with me, when I was sick, when I gave birth, whatever, those kinds of things. And you remember, oh yeah, this is the person you gave me, God. We have the Thanksgiving celebration coming up in a little bit over a month. Come to that. It will help when things go wrong. And obedience. You know what happens in this text when these people don't obey God? Not good things. And when we don't obey what God tells us to do, when we don't live the way he wants us to live, it's not only us who suffer. They're the other people around us. You know, there were these 10 men who sided the whole nation against God's will of going. And a whole generation suffered. All the women suffered. Everybody suffered. Everybody over 20 years old on that day. None of them got to see the promised land. None of them got to possess what God had promised. And in this text, it said that when we do wrong things, when we disobey God, our children will suffer. Our children's children will suffer. Their children and the children again will suffer to the fourth generation. I have quite a bit of study in psychology, and the more research that is done in psychology, it shows that this is a fact. When something is done to one person, the generations will suffer. It takes a long time for that hurt to go away. The new research says that when a pregnant woman suffers trauma, her DNA and the DNA of that child changes. There's an effect on our DNA, and it takes a while for it to weather out. When people go through war, it stays with them for generations. I remember listening to a radio program about Finnish men who had been raised by fathers who had come back from the World War II. And I called my father. At that time, this is several years ago, and he was alive. And I called my father and I told him, turn on the radio, and there's this kind of program. And while he was on the phone with me, he turned the radio on and he was listening. And he started crying. My father, who never ever cried, he was that generation, you don't cry if you're a man. And he started crying because what was discussed was something he experienced. Because he was raised by a father who had been in the war. My father was born right before the war, but 37, but his father went to war and came back. It stays with you, and I think it has stayed with my brother. It has affected us, my generation, and I can see it lightening. The effect is less now. The young people, the effect is less. But in my parents, it's very strong. My generation, it's still quite strong, the effects of war. And I can only think how the people in Israel are feeling. Every generation is going through trauma. And many of the people who have come here as immigrants have gone through horrible trauma. So we can just ask God to help us, to stay obedient to His word, and for us to be able to help each other. In my life, I have often had a problem trying to figure out what God's will is for my life. And the only advice I've ever gotten is the advice I'm giving now is read the word. Try to know God and pray. And also ask for help. Ask for advice of the older people that you perceive are living for God. Ask them to advise you. But in the end, we are each one are alone in our decisions. We make our decisions alone. And we alone are responsible for them. We alone will answer to God for how we lived. when we stand before him one day. But also the message is, have courage. He has already won. If you suffer, he is with you. And we all have one goal, same goal that the Israelites had. We have a land to go to. It's up there. Let's go. Let's travel together and honor the Lord the best we can. And when we notice that we've fallen short, go to him. And he is faithful, and he's merciful, and he forgives us. We may have to suffer consequences, but he will be with us through them. We have a song about faith and obedience. And I think I'm not going to pray right now. Let's sing that song. The music group will come, and after that, we will pray, right?